A strong friend.
Yeah. I mean, very warm, close. I think there's a sense of understanding that, sometimes doesn't even take words, because we have similar views, we have similar experiences that I think provide a bond that may seem unlikely to some, but has been really at the core of our relationship over the last 4 years.
It is fair to say that every day we find ourselves holding back a snicker, guffaw, or even a laugh-out-loud knee slapper when it comes to things our politicians say. Harry Reid's "the border is secure" comment last week comes to immediate mind. But we have to take time to note what a certain potential presidential candidate said with regard to a certain so-called former communist nation and a certain so-called president, dictator, who can't seem to keep his mouth shut or his shirt on long enough to be seen as someone who gives a ruble about what anyone says about him or tells him to do. Thus begins the political discourse. Let's welcome in former foreign editor of Newsweek, former editor-in-chief of the New York Times, currently author of the book Blood Feud, The Clintons versus the Obamas. A pleasure to be rejoined by Ed Klein. Ed, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ed, let's get down to this whole, first of all, before we talk about the Obamas and Hillary again and what's going on, this comment that she made recently where she talked about the Russian reset being successful. Now, to point out, she said in her comment, what I think demonstrates in the book is the reset worked. It was an effort to try to obtain Russian cooperation on some key objectives while Dmitry Medvedev was president. But the fact she came out at a time saying that the Russian reset worked in light of what Vladimir Putin is doing right now, is it once again just another bad time to start putting your feet into these kind of waters?
Well, Hillary keeps making comments like, we were dead broke, I was against gay marriage before I was for gay marriage, and now the reset with Russia worked, all of which seems to me to be done by someone who's rusty, isn't at the top of her game. The American public doesn't need to be told that the reset worked when simultaneously with those words, Russia is now currently bombarding and shelling the Ukraine, the first time since World War II that a European country has actually gone to war with another European country.
I think it's fair to say that there are many people who believed early on that Hillary Clinton was the woman of the people here, that they believed her, they trusted her. But is it also not fair to say that she's just making so many mistakes here that it's very uncharacteristic? She should know better than to say things like these. I hate to say that, but I will say that in line of somebody who has been in the political theater for so long. So why does she continue to push a lot of these statements out there that anybody with a smart PR/marketing mind would be able to say, Mrs. Clinton, I don't think that's in your best interests?
Well, I try to explain that, and I think I did in my book, Blood Feud. The relationship between Hillary Clinton when she was the Secretary of State and the Barack Obama White House was a dysfunctional relationship. They did not get along. While she was Secretary of State, foreign policy was actually being made in the White House by a triumvirate led by David Axelrod, a political operative, Valerie Jarrett, who has absolutely no foreign policy experience, and John Brennan, the Deputy National Security Advisor, who often accompanied Hillary on trips and was treated more importantly than she was.
I also wanted to talk about the fact that she seems to be completely out of touch. Would you agree?
Well, I've been feeling recently that there is a difference between the Hillary of 2008, when she was in that primary battle with Barack Obama and she came on fire. She was really lit up and she was talking to people in a very, very direct way and making progress. And the Hillary of 2014, who seems to be lacking that fire in the belly. I wonder if she's having serious second thoughts about running for president.
Let's talk about that for a minute here, because there is a tremendous amount of discussion here that the Obamas will do what they can to perhaps make sure that Hillary Clinton does not get into the White House. And we heard that soundbite before us where Hillary talked about the fact that it was a warm, close relationship between she and the president, which your book completely paints as totally incorrect here. But if we look at the fact that people say the Obamas would do anything that they could to get her out of office, do the Obamas really need to undermine Hillary Clinton at this point, noting what she is doing in the public arena?
Well, despite all her gaffes, Hillary is still leading the pack in the Democratic Party for the nomination. And as I reported only recently, the Obama White House has authorized Valerie Jarrett to open secret negotiations with Elizabeth Warren, the left-wing senator from Massachusetts, who is very popular on the far left base of the Democratic Party. They've been encouraging her, Elizabeth Warren, to challenge Hillary. In addition to that, only recently, President Obama said, and I'm quoting him, that Joe Biden would make a superb president. So I think they're doing everything they can to make sure that Hillary doesn't have a cakewalk into that nomination.
All right, two people you mentioned here, and I have to get your opinions on these. First of all, Elizabeth Warren. She has said time and time again, she's almost come out and almost said the words. What words do you not get about my not wanting to run for president? She just continues to say this over and over again. And there are those who say that she won't run, that it is simply up there as a smokescreen. You're not going for that at all, are you?
Well, I'm not saying she is going to run, because I don't think she's committed herself to running. She hasn't hired a national team for a national campaign. She hasn't started personally raising money for the nomination. But, you know, she still has quite a bit of time after the midterm elections next November. But there's no question she's wildly popular among the base of the party and is being wooed as we talk, you and I talk now, by both the Obamas and the Clintons. The Obamas to get her in the race, the Clintons to keep her out of the race.
In your opinion, you mentioned Joe Biden. How much of a mistake would a Joe Biden presidency be for the nation, or let's even put it this way, a Joe Biden candidacy for the Democratic Party?
My sources who are very close to Joe Biden tell me that he has definitely decided to run, even though it looks as though at this stage of the game he couldn't even possibly imagine getting more than 17% of the Democratic Party vote in the primaries. But, you know, politics is a blood sport. We don't know whether Hillary is going to be able to go all the way given her health problems. If she should falter or fall out or withdraw, Biden would be there. And I think we're going to see Joe Biden taking Hillary on. And, you know, Joe is a guy who knows how to use colorful language, which often makes Hillary very uncomfortable.
What's the relationship between those two?
Biden and Hillary?
Yes.
I think it's courteous. You know, they're both seasoned politicians. They both understand that they have conflicting ambitions. I think Hillary doesn't think Biden is, at this point, a serious challenger. In fact, no one on the scene seems to be able to launch a serious challenge to her for the nomination yet. But we're far away from that primary season, and a lot can happen between now and then.
Ed, you know an awful lot about the primary season, the election cycles, and what goes on here. Let's look at a clock here. If we were to put a time on it, you would say that when Hillary Clinton is looking at right now, she has the date circled on a calendar and says, that's the date that I have to make a decision by. What would that be?
It already occurred. That date is behind us. She is definitely running. She's told her friends she's running. Her husband, Bill Clinton, has told everybody who listened that she's running. They've gone to various state chairmen all across the United States to line up organizational support. They're raising money. There's no question she's running. The only thing that could stop her, I believe, from running would be if her health didn't hold out. And that's a big if, because we don't know how healthy Hillary is. Her doctor tells her she has a heart valve problem, which she hasn't revealed to the public. That may or may not be a serious impediment, but short of her health, Hillary Clinton is in this to win.
I got about 60 seconds, so let me ask you from the Republican side of things. Is it fair to say that Hillary Clinton is what the Republicans need as an opponent to galvanize the base, to get people excited, to get them all riled up about going back to the White House? They need a Clinton there to go up against.
I think they would love a Clinton, or they love a Joe Biden, or they'd even love a Elizabeth Warren. The question in my mind is, will the Republicans put up a candidate who is not so far to the right that the independents who do decide these elections can vote for him or her? And I think that's still an open question, where the Republicans are going to end up. They have been very good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory before.
Exceptionally well put. I will say that much. The book, again, is Blood Feud, the Clintons versus the Obamas. It still has people talking. They will be talking through the midterms and right into the election cycle. Trust me on this one, it will continue. Ed Klein, thank you so much for joining us, Ed. Let's do it again. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. As we look forward to the midterms now, Hillary may have already made that decision. Next up, fires burn, missiles rain down in the Middle East. More coming up right here on MidPoint.